Welcome to the only place where real, raw, and vulnerable conversations happen with IFBB Bikini Pros to give you an inside look at their struggles, strategies, mindset, passions, and all of life beyond the stage. This podcast is made to inspire, motivate, and remind competitors and the average gym goer that even the most extreme lifestyles and elite athletes have their ups and downs. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm your host, Celeste Rains-Turk, and now it's time for the Confessions of a Bikini Pro podcast. Today's guest is a coach with Physique, as well as an account coordinator for a healthcare recruiting company. She started lifting at an early age and began her competition journey in 2019. And at her 15th show, she won her pro card, which was the 2023 NPC Universe. Now she's married to her best friend, and I am excited to announce the new last name and welcome to the show, Maria Giesey. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
You're so welcome. I'm so happy that you're here. And before we jump into a bunch of your journey and the things that I've got planned for us to talk about, I got to ask you if there's anything you do, think about, or maybe a ritual you have right before your heel hits the stage.
Yeah, so one thing I try to do is just get into a Zen zone, just trying to calm my nerves as much as I can. That might be just kind of going off into a corner and just kind of being alone for a little bit. And right before when I'm in line, I'm practicing my posing, in my head where the judges are at. But I have to still kind of keep my nerves down. And I kind of repeat to myself, I'm not nervous. I'm excited. Like, I'm excited to be on stage. It's not the nerves. And I have to try and almost trick my mind into
Yeah.
thinking that. 'Cause, yeah, I mean, I get nervous before and anxious, but I have to think you have worked so hard to get here. Like, you're excited. You're excited to go out in front of those judges. So that's kind of like my mindset into preparing myself to step on stage.
I really love that. I feel like it's such a vulnerable thing when you really break it down. You're getting out there to display all of your hard work that's not just been over the course of weeks, but months and years. And sometimes I feel like a show carries more weight or meaning than others. Um, and I'm curious if you had that experience when it was time to go to Universe. Like, did you experience a little bit more nervousness or were you more calm because it was like you had been out there on stage for a few times now?
I would say Universe was probably one of the more calm moments I felt stepping on stage. And I think that had a lot to do with doing junior nats right before. And yeah, I placed second there. But I just had such a fun time at that show. It was my first time doing junior nats. I had a really good talk with Sandy afterwards that just had me pumped for Universe. I was
Wow.
like, I am so ready to go. So when I went to Universe, again, you have to go in there with zero expectations that you're coming out with a pro card. I'd done it before many years. And so for me, I just went in there and I felt so calm just stepping on stage. It was a great feeling.
Wow. So what did Sandy tell you at Junior Nats?
She was well, um, she was very excited for me to be there. And she was like, you have to go to Universe. And actually, I don't even think she made it to Universe because there were so many flights that were getting canceled through United
Oh,
that
wow.
year that I actually had to cancel my flight before, yeah, because it was about to get canceled. I saw them all. This was all
Oh
stressful.
no.
Yeah, so all the flights were getting canceled going into New Jersey, and I was like, I remember the night before, it was the week of Universe. I'm talking to my now husband, and I'm like, dude, I think these are about to my flight's gonna get canceled. Everything else is. And I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna book another flight. So I booked a flight from New York. I can't remember exactly where I flew into, rented a car to make it into Universe. And sure enough, my flight did end up getting canceled that I had originally booked. So I was like,
Whoa.
God, yeah, it was a little
Good.
stressful.
God, it is so stressful. So when you booked that second flight into New York, did you just, it was so set in your mind, there was nothing stopping you from getting to Universe?
Exactly. I was like, nope, I'm gonna be there. The universe is
Yeah.
telling me I need to be there.
Yeah. And it was totally worth it. And what's kind of cool also is like Sandy being so encouraging. I mean, you had come within one placing of your pro card four times, which is a doozy. So, talk to us about that road to pro and what those experiences taught you or maybe built in you as an athlete.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first time I stepped on a national stage was in 2019. Um, and it was my first season. I had done two other shows and I was, just that mindset. I was just like, go have fun. Like, I don't even know what nationals is like. And I placed fifth. And so I made the top
Amazing.
five. And I was like, dang, that was a lot of fun. I want to do it again. So, um, the next year, 2020, I started prepping in the beginning of closer to the beginning of the year. And then that's when obviously COVID happened. Shows were getting canceled left and right. We were out of the gyms, fun times.
Mhm.
Um, so as shows started to come back towards like the end of summer, I was like, you know what? I think I'm in a good place. I want to go ahead and prep as well. And so that's when I hired my coach, who is my coach now currently. And we had planned to do nationals again. Um, and that was the show that was my first time I had ever come close to my pro card. So it's the top two. I got third place. So I was almost there.
Wow.
And we thought we had it, but hey, you always, you never know who's going to show up.
Right.
So I was like, that's fine. Like, we did another show afterwards, a regional show. I won the overall there, feeling good. And then I did the junior or amateur Olympia and didn't play so well in that. We tried a different look, but it was good. Like it was a good season for me to kind of just dive in and see like what looked best on me, what the judges were wanting. It was just more feedback. Um so 2021 was another year that I became close to my pro card, missing my spot by one at Universe. And one that one hurt a little bit more, I would say. Just because like, coming so close the year before at nationals, going into a short, building season and
Mhm.
then prepping for two national shows and the Junior USA's right before then was probably one of my worst placings. And then we came back better, but I was just so wiped out at that point, just
Yeah.
having such a short season in between. So we took a longer off season in between 2021. I did come back in 2022 for North Americans once again, coming one away.
Yeah, so
I
crazy.
remember some people saying congratulations, and because I got second, I'm like, thanks, and they're like, you're a pro now, and I'm like, no,
Not at this
because we
show. Mm.
yeah, so it was win your class at that show. But honestly, that was a different experience after compared to 2021. Like my mindset was just better. I was just like, hey, you did it again. You came super close. Let's keep going. Like
Wow.
there was just no excuses. So the mind shift from, 2021 to 2022 on, I think I just really grew in that time. Just understanding like, hey, it's a competitive field and, you have to come in your best and your best might not be the best that day. So you just can't get butthurt about it. You just got to keep going. And so that's what I did going into 2023. Um, I competed like every single year.
Yeah, I'm like,
Um,
that's so many years in a row too of getting an elite level of conditioning.
yeah, which we'll get into later. But yeah, so 2022 going into 2023, I started, prepping towards the end of the year, and we were planning on um, doing what were we doing that year? I think we were going to wait until Universe that year. Um, I'm trying to remember, but I'm sorry. But I ended up being early or like
Ready?
well conditioned early on. So we ended up jumping into the amateur Arnold.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, like super early. It was
I
like
was gonna say that's very
13.
early. Your body was like, let's go.
Dude, my body was so ready. I think it was 13 weeks that I like dialed it in and I was like shredded. I was like, oh, okay, we're here now.
Wow.
Um, but that was an eye opener as well. Did not, I came in way more conditioned than anyone else on stage, which did not benefit me.
Hmm.
It was too much. So I actually had to dial it back after that with like especially my upper body training because my upper body just likes to take over. So yeah, we dialed it back on training, for upper body. And honestly, after that show, I was like, man, like the next national show isn't for months. I'm like, just, that's a March show and they don't start up until May. And I'm like, I'm already conditioned. Like, what am I going to do?
Mhm.
And so we decided to just maintain, I was eating well, doing minimal cardio, still staying very lean, having a meal out maybe once a week, very maintainable. And so that's the only way I was able to make it through to, the May and June shows because I was already like, oh man, like stepping on when I went to Universe, I was like, okay, Paul, this is going to be my last show no matter if I get my pro card or not for this season. Like I'm
Yeah.
I'm burnt out. So, yeah.
That's interesting that you went into it feeling burnt out. Did that affect some of your actions in the gym or cardio or with meals?
No, no. And I guess, burnt out is probably the wrong word to say. I just knew I was at the end of it.
Yeah.
I didn't want to go to another show afterwards, even though like you would think like, why don't you want to do your pro debut like right after and get the judges' feedback? I was at my very end of the road for that season. Just because it had been such a long time of being lean that I was just ready for, life again,
For sure.
outside of prep.
I totally understand that. I think no matter the length of a prep, you will get to a point when you're so lean and you start to feel like, okay, there's only so there's only so much time I can maintain this, even when the practices, like you said, going out to eat and dropping cardio, even when those practices are sustainable, air quotes for those
Mhm.
listening, not watching the video, it doesn't take away from the fact that your body is in a very conditioned state, which puts stress on your body and on your mind because you're still thinking, well, I've got a show in 2 months, or I've got a show in 1 month now, I've got a show in 3 months, whatever it might be. You're still thinking that way and you want it so bad. Now, you had gone into that I guess those two other pro qualifiers feeling calm, feeling like, okay, I want this, but you said something had really shifted in your mindset. Was there anything that you did that year from the year before to the year you won your pro card that you feel really supported your mindset?
I mean, definitely just more, experience with, that feeling of, hey, it might happen, it might not. Um, I think just, yeah, just the experience overall. I don't know if I can like pinpoint like what really shifted. It's just, I don't want to say like I was devastated for not getting my pro card because, yeah, obviously, like you're like,
Right.
run away. But, it's just, I took it more so, maybe this is it, is that I took it more so as a learning experience every single time. Like, okay, how can we get better? Like, what was it that I didn't, I needed to improve on here? What can we do to get there? So for, the longest, and when I was when in 2020, whenever I'd ask for judges' feedback, I didn't get much feedback. It was just come in as you are, come in as you are. And I did. And it was always just so close, so close. And then I finally got feedback, to grow my glutes. So I think that just like kind of lit another fire in me to be like, okay, this is what I need to work on. This is what I can work on. So every single time I came close, it was just, okay, like I can learn from this. What do I need to do better? Is it my posing? Is it my training? Do we need to come in more conditioned, which was really not the case for me. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, yeah.
That's amazing. So you really started to, not that you weren't before, you were really hungry for feedback because you wanted to be better. You wanted to earn that pro status, that not getting feedback, it would probably exacerbate this. Like, well, what do I do then? What am I not doing? And I wonder, did that ever trigger some of the feelings you had as a teenager of like not being enough or being isolated? Like, did that bring anything up emotionally?
Um, I don't know if I would say it brought up emotionally, like from like, just my childhood, but it just didn't really give me the goal I needed. When you get feedback, that's like your goal. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, I have a goal, and that's what motivates you, like usually in the off season, is that you have this goal. Whereas when you don't really get much feedback, what do you work on? You're like, okay, I'll
Right.
just be better. So get that feedback because that is going to motivate you to go, continue further. So,
Yeah, you can't hit a target you can't see. So when you're not getting a target, you're like, okay, I'm being told to come the same, but the same's not being rewarded. And something I think is really important to just mention here to listeners, especially people who are actively competing, like, yes, get that feedback. And if you're getting feedback that is to stay the same, like make sure you're talking. I honestly think it's important to talk to the full judging panel. If more than one judge is still there backstage to give feedback, ask because they might have their own notes. And since the scores can vary based on each judge, I try to remind myself like the NPC and the IFBB put those judges at this show for a reason and they trust their judgment. They've gone through these processes. So it's literally trust their judgment. And so you need to get their feedback. And I've found it helpful over the years personally, like the times I've actually sought more feedback or gone to events even, or had people who I know who are in the judging area or who are at events and they are judges for other shows. It's been nice to get their feedback and see, okay, well, I hadn't been given that perspective before, but now that you say that, I can see it better. So I love that you're advocating for judges' feedback. And obviously, one of those points of feedback for you was to grow your glutes. And you said earlier your upper body has been good, like you haven't really needed to touch it. So, what did they tell you after you got your pro card? Like, what was the feedback then, and how have you been, I guess, either working towards it or processing?
so right now we know that glutes have always been my weaker point. So that has been our focus during this off season. Or I don't even want to call it an off season because it's an improvement season. So,
Yeah.
um, but yeah, no, that's been, as far as this improvement season goes, like obviously that has been in my training, like that has been the primary focus. Um, but aside from just like physique wise, like during this improvement season, I have really been trying to just improve my health overall because, 4 years of a lot of competing can do a lot. So, that has been probably just more so a health phase during this time. It's just, making sure that hormones are regulated and, all that goes into that.
Oh yeah. Oh, for sure. I
Yeah.
mean, you had faced those health complications. They had popped up from like gut health to other things I think you had mentioned. So maybe you could talk to us
Mhm.
about, and even anxiety too, which I want to hear more about as well. So can you just speak to what you experienced, what kind of came to a head after these back-to-back years of competing and how you've gone about managing it in this health phase?
Yeah, absolutely. Um, so after 2020, after winning my pro card at Universe, I would say I had a really successful reverse. Everything was going fine, but for more context, I had gotten off birth control that I had been on for 10 years, which I think was the culprit for a lot of the things I was experiencing. Um, so I got my period back pretty soon after, which was like 3 months after my show, which I was really shocked by because I hadn't had it in years and thought everything was going great. I was like, yeah, everything's good. But slowly after, a few months went by, I just noticed like I was suffering from constant bloating. Um, I got my hormones checked, like blood work done, and things were definitely a little off, but nothing too alarming. So I think more so what was going on was more just my gut health that was affecting me in so many ways. I know that's like a big topic right now, about the microbiome, but after going through it, I 100% believe that it was a lot that had to do with that. Because when you're in prep, like and I don't do meal plans, I, practice flexible dieting, but your microbiome, it will change over time, like depending on what you are giving it. So whether that be that I was introducing foods too quickly that threw it off or what, but things were off. So I was going through some constant bloating. I would wake up bloated, I would go to bed bloated. And I was like, this never happened to me ever. Um, so I took like a GI map test, changed some foods in my diet that really helped. I did that for like 6 months. But before I did that, along with the bloating, I was just experiencing a lot of anxiety, just like throughout the day for no reason. I would get so stressed out, and I'm like, I had to like I would have to talk myself down and be like, okay, why are you so stressed right now? There's not enough going on that you should be, you know, this anxious about anything. So it was a weird time. A dark time for me. And as someone who just got their pro card and as a coach, like it was really hard mentally. I think I was even more hard on myself for feeling that way and just being like, you should have this figured out. Like, what are you doing? You're supposed to be a pro, you're supposed to be a coach, and yet I felt like I was failing. So that was very hard to deal with.
Yeah, because getting the pro card, it created like a new identity in some way. You were still you, you're still an athlete, but now you're a professional athlete. And obviously, as a coach, there's some standard you hold yourself to. So when you go through things that start to challenge the connected standards to that identity, it creates like a lot of tension and anxiety makes perfect sense. But following a gut protocol is no joke. I went through that too in my last improvement season, and one of the things that was toughest for me was I felt like it was taking away from my improvements, to be honest. So I was like, shoot, like now I've got to cut things out and I've got to do this. Like, you kind of go, at least for me, I had to go into a deficit as we started to bring food
Mhm.
down and starve the gut a little bit, then refeed it. Like, there was so much that went into it. And then on top of that, it's like, you don't want to be putting your body in a super stressed state. So it felt like my improvement season was now like slipping through my fingers. Or I was like, no, and now like my desire is like not what it can be. Did you experience anything like that?
100%, yes. And that's why I'll call it a health phase that most of last year because it was a lot of, yeah, like you said, you had to bring down food and work it back up because you were more focused on just getting your gut health up versus training. Like I wasn't able to train as
Yeah,
hard for
exactly.
months. Yeah. And I don't know if you experienced this, but during that time when when your gut was off, like, did you notice just more like aches and pains with your body, just like not able to recover as well?
Yeah, I felt
Yeah.
like I couldn't recover as well. I was tired when I shouldn't have been. And the main indicator to my coach was we were eating so much post show, like we had reversed into the show, and then after the show, our macros were in a good spot. But then he's like, "You should be able to eat more than you are, like carbohydrate wise." He's like, "I don't understand why every time we're upping it, there's this inflammatory response and there's this weight gain response." And I was like, "I feel the same way. Like, why am I not able to eat more?" And he was very like, "It doesn't make sense." And now looking back, like I can see so much of the symptoms or the experience I was dismissing were a result of an unhealthy gut. And thank goodness we tackled it because now this prep, like I'm eating more than I ever have at a weight that is lower, you know?
Yeah. Dude, that's amazing. And that's exactly like, you're like, I know my body and how it's worked in the past, like, and this is not right. Because I felt the same way as far as, I'd try introducing, more calories and it was like instant weight gain. And I was just
Mhm.
like, I'm following the plan. Like, what is going on? It was so frustrating.
Yeah, and then you're not as hungry and you're like, I'm supposed to
Yep.
be getting hungrier, but food is just like sitting there.
Yes. Yeah. And it's so uncomfortable.
It is. So I'm glad that you addressed it now for 6 months or so. And you said that this was like a
Mhm.
major health phase for you. And obviously you had other things going on, having come off of birth control. So once you got through the gut protocol, and of course, that I think that is what contributed to resolving some of your anxiety too, it sounds
Mhm.
like, anyways.
Oh yeah.
And you also had built other habits, like you had built a meditation habit and you started to prioritize, yeah, health as a whole. What made you decide I should start meditating and how did you build that habit?
So, going actually before I started competing, there was a couple year span before that I got really into yoga, felt really good. Because again, like I think I was overtraining back in the day, and so I was constantly sore, and I was like, that's when I started introducing yoga. And but then, phase over, went to it straight into bodybuilding, just absolutely, dove in. And I neglected flexibility, mobility, and then yoga as a whole. So, during this time off, I was like, while I was not able to train as intense as I wanted to, I was like, I need to find balance in my life again. And so I started doing yoga, and actually, a friend of mine, she's the one who kind of encouraged me to start doing it again and going to classes because I was
Mhm.
just starting like doing it at home, following YouTube videos, which I do actually did this morning because it just feels good, when you have a
Okay.
rest day and you can just stretch. But I started, hopping into the hot yoga classes and just, that really helped me, I think mentally just learn to just calm down, like be okay with slowing down, and, being more present. I don't know if you do yoga, but it's
I
just
don't, but I know a lot of people who say that it's been highly beneficial for them.
hmm. And then I just started practicing just more, pausing throughout the day and just, even if it's just 2 minutes of deep breath work and just focusing on my breath for 2 minutes, like it does so much to your nervous system. It's a habit that I've tried to keep up with on a daily basis.
Yeah, that's so amazing. Like, it's one thing to do it when you need it. It's another thing
Hmm.
to do it proactively, which it sounds like you've made it part of your routine because you felt what it was like to not have it in your routine and you didn't want to go through that again. Now, after addressing these things from a mental health perspective as well as like a physical functioning perspective, how did you feel after? Like what did you notice? What was the positive result or impact of addressing your gut health and also emotional mental health?
It was towards the end of summer. I just, I really felt, I felt so much better. I felt like I was finally able to like introduce more calories, feel good. My training intensity was back up. Um, and I was like, all right, you know, we did it. I'm where I need to be, where I can actually improve now in an
Yeah.
improvement season. So, but I also my other motivation was that I was getting married in this past January. So I was like, I want to look good in my dress. I want to feel
Yeah.
confident.
Yeah.
So that was like a big motivator for me to really just, dial things in, feel good, do the things that felt good, not restrictive, not in a prep, but be more on top of my nutrition and really trying to, be healthy as healthy as I could. Um, so that was definitely a big motivator there. And that's when towards the end it was November, I decided to do I liked where my food was at, but I just incorporated more walking up to my daily step count to just kind of lean out a little bit, over as you know, like
Yeah.
over the time, I gained a little bit of body fat that I did not want,
Mhm.
especially for the wedding. So I really focused more on upping my steps and for those 2 months leading into the wedding. And I just felt really, really good. And, a month later, or yeah, a month later after our wedding, I'm still feeling great. It's just,
Love that.
it's a good feeling.
That's so awesome. And obviously, like going through all of this, when you're in it, it's difficult and it feels like, oh, I'm not going to get through it, or how long is this going to take? And what if it this? What if it that? But you did, you came out the other side. Now you're feeling better for it. And I imagine that it's influenced the way that you coach as well. I mean, you get to have that personal experience of 15 shows to go pro, coming within 1 point of your pro card 4 times, and then earning your pro card, but then also having the gut health journey, seeing what happens if certain health markers aren't taken care of. So, how does it influence the way that you coach or provide information to aspiring competitors?
Great question. No, I think it has definitely influenced my coaching, especially when you said the health markers. I am, if things, it's not just about cardio and macros. Like you can adjust all you want, but if your body is not responding, there is an underlying issue that needs to be addressed. So I am much more aware of that with my clients. I'm much more vocal to them about, hey, when's the last time you got blood work done? Asking those questions more about their digestion. What did they eat? Um, because I just from going through it and never having gone through it before, I'm like, wow, I'm like, have I been missing this the whole time? So, or have there been clients in the past that maybe this was something that was affecting them and we didn't really know? So it is definitely an eye opener for me in that aspect. But then on the competition side, yeah, having done so many shows, I feel very confident with, preparing my clients to what for especially first timers, like what to expect on show day and throughout the process. I try to make that very clear on my consult calls that, hey, if this is what you want to do, this is what's involved. So, yeah.
For sure. And I think there are a lot of competitors, or I should say, there are a lot of people who want to get into competing who look at the competitors who won their pro card very quickly and they
Hmm.
think that that's the norm. But I think what happens is those who win their pro card quickly generally maybe get a little bit more of a spotlight or some recognition because it's like, wow, this could be like the next big star, you know, they just jumped into the NPC, now they're in the IFBB. But then there's like people like yourself, it's been since 2019, and people like myself, I'm not a pro yet, but I've been in this since 2015, and I'm like, okay, you once you're in this for a long time, you it's weird, you almost detach further from I need to be a pro and you indulge more in how gratifying the process really is. And it's cliche, but it's true. So, how has your longer journey actually maybe influenced how you view the sport or how you explain those things to other people?
Yeah, no, I can totally agree with you there. Like it becomes less about like this mindset of I got to get my pro card. I can do this to just enjoying the process. And like you said,
Yeah.
it's said so much, but I know I'm like I just said it. But it's so true because like you just have a deeper appreciation for the work that you're putting into it and just the overall experience. Like if I hated getting on stage every single time, like I wouldn't have, probably made it this far. But I genuinely loved it. I love the structure and prep. I thrive on that. And just getting on stage like every single time can feel a little bit, you can have a different experience every single time. And I don't know, it's exciting to me to just keep going and see where you can take it versus just having this like I have to get my pro card. Like that's it. Because then if you don't get your pro card, you're just going to be disappointed. So why not just think about more so just coming in as your best? Um, is the best, like most simple way I can think of to put it is just, you want to show up and show the work to the judges. And, that if you feel like you stepped on stage and you did your best, like you're going to be satisfied with that.
Absolutely. Like if we put a pro card on a pedestal over the actual process and being better and how you feel, it may not actually be as fulfilling as if you did everything you could, you were really proud of yourself, you brought something better, and then the cherry on top is you were rewarded with that. I think that that would lead to greater commitment into the longevity of your journey.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
If you're looking for competition heels, jewelry, and fun competitor extras, then visit shoefairyofficial.com and use code Celeste for a discount at checkout. Now, were you ever challenged in the same way through athletics growing up as you were in bodybuilding?
So growing up, I did gymnastics, competed for a couple of years, and then really that was middle school. And I realized that I liked the tumbling aspect of everything. I was good at that. And so that's why I
Oh.
went to cheerleading. Um, but just overall mindset, I think I was always just harder on myself as a child. I just always wanted to, do my best. Um, I yeah, just always been very competitive in that aspect, and I just wanted to thrive in in a sport. So, in gymnastics, when I realized like, okay, I'm good at some of these things, but I'm actually really good at this thing and I really enjoy it. That's why I went to cheerleading because I was like, I want to tumble. And I
Yeah.
tried to, yeah, so I tried to do, get to my most, highest level of tumbling through cheerleading. And I just absolutely loved it. But I did put a lot of pressure on myself, even throughout those years. Um, just thinking back on like competition seasons when I was doing all-star cheerleading. And I remember one time there was a big show show we went to and I did not do my best in that show. We placed okay as a team, and it is a team sport, but I knew deep down that like I could have, pointed out like five different things that I messed up on. And I was so hard on myself. I remember crying after. And I was just like, and my coach, I remember coming up to me and he was like, "Why are you crying? Like, we got like X place or whatever it was." And I was like, I messed up. I messed up. And so, like, that, I think that's, just something I've done to myself all these years is that I am just really hard on myself. I am a perfectionist when it comes to, just wanting to show up, not be the best, but do my best. And when I know I didn't do my best, I would feel like trash, So that's kind of where that comes from. But, and another, I guess what kind of triggers that is that, I was homeschooled growing up and like I had a big family and everything. But as far as like friends growing up, like I had my core friends, but I wasn't the popular girl. And, like I think like kind of that when you said like something about kind of feeling isolated,
Mhm.
I think when I felt isolated, that's when I could lean into something and just really feel like I wanted to be good at it. Like I wanted to be the best I could be at it. And so when I didn't do my best, I was just like even harder on myself. I don't know if that makes sense, but
Yeah,
it's a little
yeah, it
bit
does.
about like showing up and being like, yeah, I did it, And I think that kind of had to do a little bit with it and why
For
I've always
sure.
been so hard on myself.
Yeah, I imagine, although sometimes that can feel like pressure or let down if you're not performing at the expectation level you have. But there's
hmm
another side of that, which is like the self-confidence. Like you likely built a lot of confidence in yourself because you consistently showed up and learned.
Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because I mean, growing up, I definitely did not have a lot of self-confidence. Always felt like I wasn't good enough. And so being able to find something that I was good at, I just fully invested in it.
Mm.
Um, it made me feel good and I loved it, Not saying like you have, loving something, you're always going to be good at it or,
Right.
but, that's how I felt especially when I found bodybuilding, I was like, hey, I might be good at this and I like it. And so
Awesome.
that's what made me continue to keep going for so long.
Yeah, and I guess that leads me to wonder, like, at what point would you say you really believed in yourself and who you are?
Um, I think, I mean, gosh, well, me as in like competing or me just now in
You,
general.
you.
Oh gosh, that's been over the years of just Maria in the making.
Yeah.
Um, just being more confident with, the choices I make for myself, the people I surround myself with. I would have to say my husband has been one of my biggest supporters, but also just such a positive influence when it comes to just like my self-worth, not, just finding he's just always encouraged me to be the best I can be. And that has definitely helped me. And then just our community, our friends group, and my family is very supportive. I think like just seeing that now, I just, I can find like over the years, I was just like, it built up, like where I just felt better, like more confident with myself. And hey, I am worth this. Like if I put the work in, I can do this. So I think it's not like a point in time, but it's just over the years, like shifting the woe is me. I'm not good enough to just shut up and just recognize your self-worth.
For sure. So you had to really talk yourself out of the judgment and criticism and pity.
hmm Yeah.
Hmm. And I think it's very valuable to have people in your life who uplift and encourage and support you because although a lot of times people will say you can't derive your worth from others, I think there's also this truth in that none of us were born individually. We didn't just come out of thin air. We came from another person, and that is, uh, I mean, that's a key sign that we're communal beings. And so
Hmm.
you can't really define or know yourself without having experienced other people too in some strange way. And so I think when you're around loved ones and they are expressing like kudos or support or they're there for you, there is a level of worthiness that can be gained from that because just like our presence in someone else's life is meaningful, others' presence in our life is too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Now, I really want to know why, because it sounds like you've come a long way since, young Maria. Which is so awesome. But what do you think is important, or why do you think it's important for young women, or and anyone for that matter, to pursue what it is that they're passionate about?
Because if you don't, you're going to wonder, a year from now why you didn't do it. 2 years from now,
Mm.
5 years, you're going to sit there and be like, oh, I wish I would have done it. When if it's something you really want to do, you need to at least try it. You might, you might get into it and be like, hey, not for me. I had different expectations and it's not meeting those, but you never know. You might surprise yourself and be like, yeah, this is exactly where I need to be. So
Wow.
I think, yeah.
I really love that. I can't agree more because I think sometimes we'll come up against resistance even in our own mind. Like, okay, maybe the doubts or the fears or the worry about, well, what if I did this and it still didn't happen or it still didn't work? And that's where we have to remind ourselves like the pursuit alone is what will make it worthwhile. And knowing that when you look back, you'll know you didn't give up or not do it just because you were worried or scared.
Hmm. Yes.
So, outside of competing, what are some of your goals or aspirations?
So, well, right now, I mean, we just got married,
Yeah.
so we do have some travel plans we are working on. But aside from that, just really trying to, grow my roster for my team. And us and as well as not only just grow, but like my team, but I want to grow as a coach. So I am constantly trying to learn and expand my education. So that's going to be a big focus for me this year is just, taking more coursework and, kind of diving more into the gut health is one of the, areas I want to learn more about just because I know how much it impacts us. Um, Not only just as competitors, but just in life in general. So that's definitely some of the things on my list this year. So yeah.
That's awesome. And being a newlywed myself, I know how exciting it is. It's so fun and like there's a lot of good in it. And right after I got married, I literally got like this really random, like weird health issue. I ended up having myoclonus and also hemifacial spasms.
Oh my
And
God.
so we put in sickness and health to the test real fast. And that in itself like created it almost, I don't know, it almost put like a what's the word I'm looking for? Like a halt to the honeymoon phase, you could say. Where I'm like, damn, like that went real fast.
Oh,
Now it feels like I don't know, like it's just dumping. But now it feels like, it's getting back into that zone, but it is a beautiful thing to be married. I am a huge love lover. Like I love love. I think it's so awesome. So I would regret not asking you like how you and your husband met and how you got to the point of knowing you'd marry and maybe even his impact on your journey aside from of course being so encouraging.
yeah. So we actually met 10 years ago through a company we both worked for. And it was pretty, I remember, so we had worked for the same company, but he was working at a different office. And then he moved over to our office after I'd been there for about 6 months. But I remember a friend of his that also worked, well, so it was a group of us that worked there. We're all friends now. But my friend Mackenzie, she worked there and we had just started, she just started. And so we were kind of vibing and she was like, hey, you want to come hang out and, with us this Saturday? And I actually had like something going on, but I found out later on that TJ was trying to get me to come hang out. And
Oh,
so, but once we started hanging out, it was soon after that we had the conversation of, so you're not seeing anyone, I'm not seeing
yeah.
anyone. You want to make this thing like a thing?
Oh,
And so like I said, we've been together for 10 years. It was pretty soon after I felt like I was like, I think this is gonna last. I think this is gonna work.
wow.
And but it wasn't until we were 3 years into dating when I started competing, but I had that conversation
Oh,
with him like, hey, never done this before, always wanted to. We were big foodies. And I was like, I'm not gonna be able to, go out to eat for a few months. I'm probably gonna be tired. I'm gonna have to be really in the zone if I want to do this. And he was like, absolutely, go for it.
wow.
So that was something important to me. And I'm glad I had that conversation instead of being like, hey, I'm going to do this. This is what I want to do for me. It was like, hey, are you okay with this? Like, this is what it's going to require. And I don't know everything that's going to happen because I've never done it. But, it was kind of cool to go through that journey together. Because he learned a lot too.
Oh,
So,
I bet. Is he
yeah.
into fitness?
No, he's actually not a gym goer,
Yeah.
but he's wake skating. It's similar to
Oh, wow.
wakeboarding. Yeah, wake skating, that's been his thing for many, many years. So that's he would probably hate me saying this, but he's a pro wake skater.
Oh, that's
But
awesome.
yeah, so but yeah, so it was fun. Like that was what, a lot of our, activities were going to wake skate events and
Wow.
going wake skating on the lake with friends. And it's an amazing community. So shout out to the wake skaters.
Yeah, who doesn't want to be on the lake all day? Shoot.
Yeah, but it's so much fun. But yeah, but even being involved in that, I felt like I still needed something for me to focus
Mhm.
on. Aside from just going to the gym, like I needed that extra like goal. So he was very supportive in that. So yeah.
That's so awesome. I love to hear stories like that. And I think it's important to have those conversations before committing to competing. Actually, I think it would be of benefit to more relationships if that conversation was had because it asserts that I understand we're in this together if I do this, just like you saw that you're in that with him. Even though he already had that passion, you being a support in his life would make a difference too. So you wanted that and you wanted him to be part of it. And my husband's not a gym goer either. And so, like, it's funny because he'll see what we do and he'll be like, how that's like a full-time job, how does anybody get all of it in? And so he's been able to really witness like the process and he's been so supportive, but there's also this other side of it where I met him at a time where I was already ready to like start kind of letting go of competing and I was like, but he even still he knew that and he's been nothing but encouraging, like go for it. Who knows? Maybe you'll keep competing after this. Never say never. Like give it your, he's been and sometimes he'll say things like, yeah, it's like, it's hard to do date nights when it's like we can't go out to eat. He's like, I'm not saying I don't like it, but his whole life before was like going out to eat or drink. And I'm like, we don't drink now. I mean, I never drank, but he doesn't drink now. And Like we haven't had many opportunities to go out to eat in our short time together. So I can relate to that too, in the sense of there's certain things from a normal lifestyle perspective you'll do, like an improvement season, go out to eat, maybe once a week or fit it in your macros or whatever. But in prep, it's a different ball game.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. And that was like a big thing for us. Like we, enjoy a meal out, but that was, and I knew that. So that was, and it was, I had that conversation in the initial, like, hey, I want to compete. But I also have that conversation with him like every time I'm about to compete. Every
Mhm.
time I'm considering it, being like, even now, I'm like, hey, this is kind of like my personal timeline. If everything works out, like, what are your thoughts on it? When we were in COVID, we moved down south, and with his mom, she had some really cool property out in Homestead, and it was,
Wow.
yeah, it was pretty, 2020 was, an isolated year, but we liked it. We had fun. But
Good.
even then, like I felt, to have that, like when I was thinking like, hey, I want to compete, I think I'm ready to do this. I had a conversation with both him and his mom, like, hey, are you guys okay? If I, try a season, and they're like, oh, yeah, absolutely. Like, but if either one of them or at any point he's like, hey, I don't think now is the time, like, maybe that's a conversation that we have. Because yeah, I want to make sure that we're it's a selfish sport, or a self-centered sport,
Right.
better put. So I want to make sure that we're, you know, recognize that, and we're both ready for that. Yeah.
Yeah. And financially too, especially when you join lives with someone, now you're looking at, oh, these financial decisions I make, even if I've saved money, they will impact both of us now. Like, does
Hmm.
this person agree that this is actually worth putting money into? And in some way, it's like personally, of course it is. That's all I spend my money on is competing in my business. And then there's the other side of it where you're like, well, that could afford us this trip together, or it could. And so it does take you out of that self-centered focus when you're really committed to someone. You're like, huh, is this really the best use of our time and energy and finances?
Yes. Oh yeah, perfectly said. Yeah.
Yeah, I
'Cause
get it.
I'll-
So, is there anything I didn't ask you that you wish that I would have?
I think so. I think we pretty much covered a lot.
Yeah.
Is there anything you want to ask me
Yeah, the
before?
only other thing I want to ask you is for your best advice. So, I want to get your best advice for someone who has never competed before but wants to, and then your best advice for someone who is on their road to pro.
Someone who has never competed before, um, hire a coach, but also do your research. Before I, decided, or when I was deciding if I wanted to do it, I was, watching YouTube videos, kind of hearing what people were going through. I was watching shows, like seeing what, was going on, trying to understand, what the judges were looking for, what the athletes were even doing on stage. When if you're a complete newbie, like it's a whole new world. Now being in it, I'm like, oh yeah, everything, it makes sense. But for someone just looking into it, like do your research, really look and see if this is something that you want to dive into. Another thing I did before um starting a prep, I remember there was a YouTuber I found at the time, and she was talking about, really making sure that her calories were in a good place. And so that's what I did. I was like, oh, so I need to make sure that I'm eating enough. And like that's when I started, really paying attention to calories and macros, making sure I was eating enough food before. So I was like, oh yeah, I have to diet down from wherever I'm at. So really looked at that. So aside from just, you want to hire a coach, but also do your research too beforehand and just know what you're getting involved with. As far as someone who's in it, Aiming for their pro card.
Yes.
Don't give up. Just but get the judge's feedback. Get feedback, learn where you need to improve, and that is the feedback that you get, that is now your new goal. Like set that as your goal versus like next show I'm getting my pro card.
Mm.
Just set like goals before that. Be like, hey, this is what I need to improve on. Once I hit that goal, then I'm going to, step on stage, see what happens, get more feedback if I need to. And don't get down on yourself if you don't get it, because everyone's trying to get it, especially if they're on that national stage.
Yeah.
We're
So
all
well
fighting for
said.
it. But it's so cool
Uh-huh.
too because like everyone, everyone's got this same goal. And when you're backstage, I think that's one thing I loved about Junior Nats is because when we were backstage, like I just felt like it was such a cool group of people like in my class that we were just all vibing together and like
Aw.
just getting each other psyched up and everything. I was just like, that's this, it's such we're all here for the same reason, but we're all here to have fun too. And it was just, yeah, that's a great thing about it. It's just having fun with it.
Yeah, all of that was so well said, and I couldn't agree more. Like even like I think when someone's really new to it, maybe it feels more competitive. I don't know, like catty competitive, I guess. But
Hmm.
like I have seen over the years building relationships and friendships and connections, like the support is so amazing. And by the time you get backstage, I mean, let's be honest, the work is done. You gotta like eat your little pump up snack, maybe, drink your water and pump up, and then it's done. So there's not going to be anything major other than you're going to leave knowing like about how your experience was. And like I'm in prep now, and I'll have friends who are also in prep and people who are doing the same show who maybe they've seen on the promoters page that I'm doing it from, like story posts or tags, whatever, and they'll message me and they'll be so kind, and or I'll reach out to the people I asked, is anyone else doing this show? And there were some people who said yes, and I reached out to them wishing them good luck, supporting their journey, because like you said, we're all in this, and at the end of the day we're all going to get on the same stage knowing we all did what we had to do to get there, and whatever happens after that, it's not a me versus them. It's obviously, you're up there against them being compared, but
Hmm.
like you said, did I deliver on the feedback? Am I bringing my best? Am I satisfied with it? That's what matters.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's just so much like you said, you're connecting with these other competitors before. So when you guys see each other, it's gonna be like, oh my God,
You're that
yeah,
girl. You're
yeah.
so at
Yeah.
so and so on Instagram.
Exactly. It's just so much more fun. And
Yes.
that's, it's a community. And I think it's beautiful, It's just something, and maybe, I don't know, I see it a lot when bodybuilding, just being a community because, I didn't have a big like friends community growing up. So like now getting that, I just see so much, I'm so grateful for it that I found it.
Oh, that's such a great point. Like, it's amazing how you don't have a lot in common with people in the sport outside of the sport itself, but the sport alone is enough to connect you. And to do this sport, you have to have a level of crazy. So
Yeah. We're all a little crazy.
it's already a connection there. Like, oh, I know your type because that's me too, girl. So when you're all backstage, and it's funny too, like I think we can stress over the little things. You said earlier you're a perfectionist. And I was thinking about that. I'm like, it's funny. We'll be backstage and one little hair could be out of place, but we could turn around and ask the girl behind us to fix it, and she will because she knows that it matters too.
Yeah, yeah. Or if yeah, I've definitely done that. Or if like, I see someone's suit, like maybe like the string is hanging out, I'm like, hey girl, let me fix this for you. It's just like
Yes.
that's what we're here for.
Oh my gosh, my pet peeve is like if I'm behind someone and I can see their like little tan line from where their bottoms were sitting, I'm like, I have to tell them because I've had stage shots where like a little bit of the white shows and I was like, no, like why am I like lighter? Like nobody told me. So now when I see it on someone else, I'm like, can I just pull it like right over that line? Because in it, I feel like it makes a difference in your physique when you've got like
It does.
hand lines that aren't supposed to be there.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. No, so we're all there. We're all in it
Yeah.
together. We're all there for each other.
Right.
And that's God, that's what I love about it. And that's what I miss about show day is just,
Mhm.
being there with everyone, being surrounded by, everything that you love that you've worked for months. Like it all just comes together so beautifully.
It
So
does. I was at a wedding this past weekend and I was like, dang, I feel like it's show day because I walked into the dressing room where all the bridesmaids were and I was like, oh my gosh, it smells like hairspray and makeup. You know what I mean?
okay, I don't know if you experienced this on your wedding day, but like I was so calm on my wedding day that like when the coordinator came in, like when we were getting ready and everything, she was like, "Oh my God, how are you feeling?" And I was just like, "I'm good." Like, I mean, the work's done, right?
Yeah,
I can't do anything else. Like
that is
all I have to do is go
awesome.
get my ring, right?
That's
Say I do.
amazing. I love that. You know, I actually eloped with my husband, so there was literally
Oh,
like no pressure or stress, but I was more calm than I probably should have been. Like, it was funny because we decided we would elope, and when we got to North Carolina, we had this like we went to the Register of Deeds office, we did the whole like you got to get the paperwork. And then we're like, let's go get coffee because that's like part of our morning routine. We're like, let's get coffee and pray and just enjoy each other's company. But he and I, we talk and talk and talk and talk and talk forever. We got lost in conversation and we looked down, we're like, oh, it's already like 11:30. We are supposed to meet with our officiant at 2. Okay, so neither of us are showered, dressed, and ready, okay? And my husband, most amazing man ever, always late though. And I'm like, he better not be late for our wedding. You know what I mean? Which, to his credit, he was not at all like I've never seen this man get ready so fast. I'm like, if you could do that today, like what's happening on the other days? So that's a side story, but he won't listen to this, so it's fine. And I mean,
oh,
he
my
doesn't
husband already
listen.
said he's listening, so
Yeah. I don't know if my
but yes,
husband's ever listened to my podcast, so but
no.
anyway, we have the officiate meeting us there too. And I was like, so we still don't have a second witness. Our first witness is the officiate's wife, but we need a second witness. So I should be stressed. I should be. Now we're looking at like an hour and a half till we gotta meet up with them. We're not ready. But we're driving back and we see this guy mowing his lawn, like right across the street from the park that we decided we'd get married. I was like, let's ask him. And he's like, yeah, I was just thinking that. So we asked this guy mowing the lawn, like, can you like be a witness at our wedding? And he was like right there. And I was like, yeah. And he's like, we were like, meet us there at like 1:50, 1:45. Like it's gonna start at 2. He shows up with his dog and he goes, oh, I can't be a witness. And so now we're like, it's fine. But he's like, no, I got you 4 other witnesses. So like, I know, can you believe it? But I wasn't stressed. Like I knew I was like, God's got this. It's fine. I wasn't stressed when we were having our coffee. We got ready so fast. Like I literally like he got ready. He was like, "Meet me here. We'll do our little first look together." And he's like, "You have 10 minutes." And I was like, "That's fine." So I threw the dress on, pulled my hair back, and I was like, "Let's just go." And it was like the best day ever. So that calmness. I have not told that story yet, by the way.
Oh my God, I love it so much. That is awesome. Oh my God. I mean, but like that level of calmness that you had throughout, I
Mhm.
mean, it's not, that was probably something learned throughout, this time that,
Absolutely.
yeah, competing and everything. Like it kind of teaches us those little, those little things that we can apply to our normal daily life, like having, you know, habits, how they create, our life. And yeah, dude, wow, that is so cool.
Thank you. It's so freaking true though. You're right. Like I think if it wasn't for all the traveling I've done, all the shows I've done, like that might have been like a more because over the years I've just become more chill because more experiences.
Mhm.
So yeah, and thank you for listening and being excited and happy also.
I love it. We talked about eloping, but our families would not have it. So we were like, all right, wedding planning it is. But
Yeah.
that is so cool.
So, how can people connect with you, work with you, and follow your journey?
So my Instagram is where I would say I'm most active. And that is Maria underscore IFBB Pro. If you would like to work together, I do have my link for to set up a consult call in my bio. So that's where you can find it.
Awesome. Okay, and we'll put that in the show notes page. So you guys, that's always on celestial.fit/podcast. If you're listening right away, it'll be at the top of the page. If you're listening in the future, scroll down to the category section. It's alphabetized. Not only will you find the links to connect with us, but you're also going to see a full summary of the episode, bulleted list of the topics we covered, and episode timestamps so you can go back and listen to your favorite parts or share it with your friends, your family, your teammates. Let them know what you thought, and of course tag us when you listen. Let us know what you think, and or message us. It always goes a long way for the show, but even further for the athletes. So they come on here and share so openly and vulnerably. It would mean a lot to them. I know that. So thank you all in advance for listening, for sharing, and for supporting the show. I hope you all have an amazing rest of your day, night, or morning, wherever you are in the world while you're listening to this episode. Just make it awesome.